Welcome back to the show. I'm Luke. This is Ryan. And today our topic is going to be taking one attraction from each park and changing that attraction to be something different, whether that's a retheme or totally like burning it to the ground and building it up as something new. So that's what we're going to be talking about today.
Yeah, I'm very excited. This is a very interesting topic. And this comes right on the heels of the the major announcement that Splash Mountain is going to be rethemed on both coasts, Disneyland and Disney World. If you're watching this, I'm sure you already know, to a Princess and the Frog reskin. It's interesting because we had this idea before that happened. We sort of wanted to talk about this, and then 3 or 4 days later, they announced that Princess and the Frog is going to be replacing Splash Mountain. So I guess it's a good time to have this discussion. So we're taking one attraction, right, from each of the 4 Walt Disney World parks, and I guess this is sort of just like wishful thinking, what we would do if we were in control. Do you want to add anything before we start?
No, I'm good. You want to do your first one?
Yeah, okay.
Pick the park. We'll start there.
All right, so you want to start Magic Kingdom just right off the bat? So Magic Kingdom, obviously they are changing Splash Mountain to Princess and the Frog, which I think is it's a good move for them. I mean, I think it is. Yeah, I mean, the old source material for Splash Mountain is a little bit controversial, so I understand why they're making the change. I don't really understand how it's going to fit into Frontierland, but I mean, Imagineers, they're smart. They'll figure it out. But with that in mind, I would say, so my attraction to retheme at the Magic Kingdom, this one was really tough actually, because if I was going to put in anything in the Magic Kingdom, I would probably add on to Adventureland. But anyways, what I would do is, so they're putting Princess and the Frog in the Splash Mountain area. So changing one attraction, I think it's sort of a cheat, but I would change the current layout of Frontierland. So you have where Princess and the Frog is going is the old Splash Mountain building. You make that into New Orleans theme, right? And you take sort of like you extend Adventureland out. So I would have like the whole where Frontierland is right now, where Pecos Bill is, and Country Bears, which they probably inevitably are going to change at some point. So in order to blend those better, I think you would change that into like a sort of New Orleans Square type of thing, to where they have in Disneyland, which works really well. And then I would extend out, so where Big Thunder is, I would make that the starting point for Frontierland, and then pull a Galaxy's Edge type of thing, like what they did in Disneyland. So you had the Rivers of America, right? And right now it's sort of dead ends where Big Thunder is and where Haunted Mansion are. Those are 2 dead ends, right? But I think a cool thing they could do would be to just extend Frontierland like around that bend and connect it to Liberty Square. And you could put any number of things in that area. And because right now they have, that's where the show scenes for the riverboat are, right? So I think it'd be cool if, so you could even keep some of that stuff in and just extend Frontierland out, maybe build some kind of new attraction in probably the very distant future. Maybe like a Pocahontas ride, which I think would work really well in Frontierland. But yeah, so then you would sort of have New Orleans Square and Frontierland and Adventureland, just like in Disneyland, and I think it would work super well. Well, what is your Magic Kingdom?
I like that a lot. So my Magic Kingdom one is probably the least creative one so far because as I was thinking through, like, for instance, the frog they're already doing. So mine is one that I kind of stole because I've seen people talk about it on the internet all the time. But I don't think it'll ever happen because it's kind of controversial. But that's taking Small World and turning it into a Tangled boat ride. And I'll tell you why. Episode 1, I already talked about why I didn't really like Small World. And also, the Tangled bathrooms are right there. So it's primed for a little Tangled, like, mini land, I guess. Yeah. And you could even go into Pinocchio Village House, retheme that really quick, and make that kind of Tangled themed as well because that, you can, like, look through the windows over to Small World right now. True. I don't think it would be that big of a deal if they didn't, but I think they could just do that. It would be like a cool mini land, kind of like the Beauty and the Beast area of New Fantasyland. Yeah. So that's my Magic Kingdom one, just like a classic dark ride. I mean, honestly, they could keep the same track and just put like Tangled show scenes in. Yeah. And I think that would be really cool. The only thing that I think would be tough about it is the lines, because that area already bottlenecks so much. That's true. And if you put in like a new, even though it would just be like a boat ride, dark ride, I still feel like it would add a lot of congestion to that area. Yeah. But yeah, that's mine. I love Tangled too. It's such a good movie, and I don't really care for Small World, so I think it'd be a good fit to the park.
Yeah, I know you don't like Small World that much, but even though I love Small World, it's one of my favorite attractions at Walt Disney World and all around the world, actually. But that's a really good idea. I wish there was some way to do it to where you could have like a Tangled mini land, but still keep Small World. But that is actually a really good idea. Oh my gosh. Automation. So what do you want to do? Animal Kingdom next? Yeah. Go ahead.
Okay. All right. So for Animal Kingdom, this one was hard for me because a lot of the rides in Animal Kingdom I like as is. And then my first thought was like, oh, we can change it. It's tough to be a bug. But then I was like, nah, you know what? I like that show, even though it's super dated. And the technology isn't that impressive anymore. I like it. So I think that what I would want to do is take Dinosaur, since it's the same track as Indiana Jones, put the Indiana Jones ride in there, and let's make Dinoland USA. We'll make that into an Indiana Jones land. They can take Primeval Whirl and burn it. And then put the what's it called in Disneyland Paris? The Indiana Jones roller coaster there. It's like Temple of Peril. Yeah, put that there because that was a pretty fun roller coaster. And just change the whole land to be Indiana Jones because he's way cooler than dinosaurs.
But how would that fit in Animal Kingdom though? Because the whole park is very like cohesive. It all follows like the same, like it's part of the world, but then you have animals. Yeah. How would that work?
So they could change the theme of like the Indiana Jones ride to incorporate looking for some like mystical animal or something like that. I mean, I don't know. They figured out how to make Pandora fit in Animal Kingdom, and on paper that shouldn't work. So I'm thinking in like a similar way of that. I mean, just the atmosphere itself I feel fits in. Because when you're walking around, it feels very, like, Indiana Jonesy, like the jungle city's in, you know. And it doesn't have to be based off of one of the previous movies. I think they could change it while keeping some of the same elements of the ride, like the rock. I mean, you got to keep the rock chasing after you, but, you know, you could instead of be looking for, you know, something animal-themed.
That's interesting. That's a really good idea, actually. Okay, so my Animal Kingdom one is kind of similar to yours, but I'm going to take it in a slightly different direction. So there's really two things at Animal Kingdom. That whole park is absolutely incredible. It is so cohesive, like I just said. It's probably the one park in Walt Disney World, possibly like more so than any other Disney park in the world, that sticks to the theme so well. Like every single attraction there, like represents the land really well, represents the park really well. Even Pandora, like you said, they made that work in a way that I think nobody was expecting. So my idea, there's two things that I don't really like in Animal Kingdom, and one, which is not very controversial, Bird Adventure. I don't see the need to shoehorn in characters to that show, but that's not the attraction I'm gonna get rid of. The other one, Finding Nemo, the musical. It's a good show, but I don't understand how it even fits in, because there's nothing. It's not like in an ocean section. It's in between Asia and Dinoland USA, and it's basically just like a building, like just a random building. There's not even any show elements to the outside, and it just doesn't fit, in my opinion. I get that it's a good show, and I do think that we need shows like that in Disney. But having said that, my idea would be, so you bulldoze over Finding Nemo, the show, and in its place, you put a South America themed mini land or a full blown land. It depends on the space, yeah. Which I don't think there's a ton of space there, so we'll say mini land for now. But if you think about it, right, Animal Kingdom, it's about animals, obviously, but each land is themed to part of the world or part of the universe, I guess, with Pandora. And each of the lands, you have animals that live in that region there. For instance, the Africa section has like the safari ride, and you would find, and the gorilla walkthrough, and you would find animals that actually live in that part of the world there. Same thing with Asia with the tigers. Same thing with, I know it's fake, but Avatar and the Banshee and all those mystical creatures in Pandora. And same thing with Dinoland USA. It's sort of like the North American part of the park, but they found a way. Yeah, like they found a really clever way to make that fit. And I'm not going to pretend like Dinoland is one of the best lands in the world or anything, but it's not what I would bulldoze, because I think that it is really cool. So you would take down Finding Nemo the show and put in an Indiana Jones mini land, and you could have like a couple things. One of the rides that I think would be really cool, because Animal Kingdom is sort of light on dark rides right now. There's not a ton of dark rides. And I think if you did something like Pandora, where you have two rides, you have like a E-ticket and a C-ticket kind of, I think that would work really well. You can have your E-ticket be like an Indiana Jones, like you were saying. And I might actually steal your idea of it being like they're going on some kind of quest to find some kind of creature. And maybe use the Rise of the Resistance trackless dark ride technology, which would be so awesome. In the Indiana Jones ride in Disneyland, California, and in Tokyo are both some of the most popular rides in those parks. So I think Indy is relevant, right? He's probably going to be relevant forever. So I think that would work really well. And then maybe for the C ticket, you could have a gentle like boat ride, sort of like a Navi River journey, kind of, where you're going through, like, think of Navi River Journey and Jungle Cruise, like the indoor parts of Jungle Cruise. Mesh those together, and you get like a nice little boat ride where you're seeing either real or fake animals, however they decide to do it. Real ones would be awesome. You could have like the reptiles and stuff. They're Imagineering. They could find a way to do it. So I think that would be really cool.
That would be awesome. Yeah, I like that a lot, especially like having them in the same kind of building, like Navi River and Flight of Passage. That would be cool. Right? Yeah, save a lot of space. Cool. So let's do Epcot next. Okay, so for Epcot, this was actually hard for me, and not that like there's not even a lot of rides in Epcot that I would want to get rid of. More that I feel like there's just a lot of potential for some super cool rides. I mean, I'll just say every country should have a ride, and you could add a dark ride in there, and I'll be happy. So, So like at first I was like, oh, a China or Japan boat ride would be awesome. But I feel like that's like a cop out, 'cause everybody wants that, or like the Mount Fuji roller coaster that was planned. So that's what I would want, but that's like too realistic. So mine is actually taking a ride that's not even open yet, Ratatouille, which we've done in Paris, which we've done. And I like the expansion area, not that it's open, but just from the pictures that I've seen, that little back area. And I know there's going to be like a creperie there, which is cool. Keep that. That's fine. But just take Ratatouille and gut the inside and give me a Hunchback dark ride.
Wow.
Because I think that would be cool. It's different. Ratatouille is fun. And like if you've never done it, definitely do it. But we already got one of those in the world. And it's not like Rise of the Resistance where I would say like, oh, you have to do it if you're going to Disney World. But I think it'd be cool to have like a Hunchback dark ride. I feel like that movie's underrated because I love the music and the story and everything. Yeah, it's just so good. So I think it would be a cool dark ride. Yeah.
That's a good point. So we both rode the Ratatouille ride in Paris, and I didn't like it too much, but what are your thoughts on the one in Paris?
So I liked it. Like we rode it probably 3 times on our trip there. 'Cause the park that it's in, it's like one of the better rides there. That and like the Crush Coaster we did. But it's not, I don't know. It's trackless, which is cool, and the 3D tech is cool, kind of.
Kind of too many screens, though.
It's a lot of screens in a way that like reminds you of a Universal ride, but not in a good way, almost. It's fun though. It's just not. It's not something you'd want to wait a couple hours for. I will say that. We didn't wait long when we went. Did you?
I think we waited about 30 minutes for it. And if you're waiting 30 minutes, I think it's fine. But like, I don't think it's comparable to like, definitely not Rise of the Resistance. Or there's some other really cool trackless dark rides in the world. Mystic Manor in Hong Kong Disney, I think is so much better. Winnie the Pooh in Tokyo Disney is way better. So I understand that. But do you think? I'm sure they can make Hunchback work because he's in the Magic Kingdom fireworks. But do you think he would have like the relevance? Like,
I think you would get a lot of millennials going because of the nostalgia. And I think with the new ride, people are always going to come. That's why I chose it, because it is kind of like unrealistic. I don't know how well it would do. He is in the fireworks show though, and people around me, it gets excited. Because I feel like it's a movie that you're like, oh man, I forgot how good the music was.
the main song is incredible.
And I think you could do cool things, because you could even keep the same ride system now that I'm thinking about it, because Ratatouille starts where you're like on the rooftops of Paris, and he's like always in the bell tower and stuff, so you could do that same kind of thing, and you're going through his story, watching it. The gargoyles could be there. I mean, they could do cool things with animatronics.
That's true.
So, yeah. That's mine for Epcot.
That's hilarious that you're already getting rid of Ratatouille. It's not even open. Yeah, it's okay. Yeah, it's a fun ride. It's just not on the same level as a Rise of the Resistance. But what is? I mean, seriously. Frozen. The boat ride Frozen is better than Ratatouille? Actually, I think they're on the same level. Yeah, to be honest, I think they're both along the same lines, where it's like, yeah, it's kind of good. It's nice to do. You see good characters, but it's not like the peak of Imagineering or anything. Let's see. Okay, Epcot, right? Epcot is, like you were saying, a tough one because there's just so much you could do at that park. I mean, they're literally, like you said, I would, in like a perfect world, right, I would put some kind of ride in each of the countries at World Showcase. like a refurb to Imagination with Figment would be awesome. But I'm gonna go with I'm gonna say two just for fun. My first one is my real one, and then I'll have just a fun one. But and this one is super obvious. I'm not reinventing the wheel or anything. This is something people have been clamoring for a long time, and I think that it just makes so much sense. I would get rid of the Equatorial Pavilion at Epcot, because what even is that? It was supposed to be temporary. Yeah, it was supposed to be temporary, like back in the 80s when it opened, right? But they never really did anything with it and fleshed it out. And they never put anything else in its place, so it's just sort of there. Yeah, it's so random. Like it just doesn't fit in the World Showcase. So what I would do is I would scrap that and put in a Brazil pavilion. Now this makes sense for so many different reasons. Yeah, so obviously Walt Disney World attracts a lot of international guests, and right now it's closed for COVID, obviously, and it might be, in a year or so before the international demand returns, but it will at some point, right? So, and one of the places that people love to visit from the most is Brazil, among other countries, but Brazil there's no representation in Epcot at all. And there's so much you could do with that pavilion. You could have the steakhouse. I think they were talking about doing that at one point, a Brazilian steakhouse, and that's sort of what Epcot's all about, right? It's about eating and just hanging out in the World Showcase, getting something to drink. And you could do they have the stands for the Food and Wine Festival that are always really, really popular. That's a good one. Selling, it's one of the more popular carts for the Food and Wine Festival, and so you could have that. I mean, ideally, you would want to put some kind of ride in there, but I'm sure probably starting off they won't do that. But how great would that be? Brazil in the World Showcase. I think it would be popular. The restaurant would kill, and it would be perfect to add another World Showcase pavilion. But
expensive restaurant too.
Yeah, they could make it ridiculously expensive, and people would pay for it for sure. And it would be Brazilian steakhouse. And I think it just makes sense because there's so many Brazilians who come to the parks. And I think that'd be super cool to have that representation. So, but anyways, and I just wanted to add, because you touched on this earlier, and how cool would it be to have a ride in the Japan Pavilion? Yeah. I mean, there's so many cool things that you could do. You could have some kind of boat ride, which would be just amazing, through the old era of Japan, just at night. But I think something that would be really cool, if they ever worked it out, because I think the Japan Pavilion is partially owned by the Japanese government, if I'm not mistaken.
Our discounts don't work there, and that's how I know that.
Yeah, okay, so they would have to somehow work this out, but there's a theme park that I've been to in Japan. It's called Fuji-Q Highland, and it's in the same prefecture in Japan as Mount Fuji is, and they have this ride that's called something like Soarin' Over Mount Fuji, and it's so cool. I don't know how they pulled this off. The theme park, the people who own this theme park, but it's literally the exact same technology as the Soarin' ride at Disney. And it's literally just scenes of you flying over Mount Fuji from different angles, and it's so cool. It would fit wonderfully in Epcot, so that's just my fun one. Yeah. Do you want to go ahead with your Hollywood Studios?
Your Hollywood Studios, and then I'll do it.
All right, so this is the one that I'm most excited about. because, yeah, Hollywood Studios, in my opinion, even though it has Galaxy's Edge now, is still one of the weaker parks. Yeah, I guess it's, we were talking earlier, and it's kind of like Islands of Adventure at Universal now, right? Where it's sort of, there's not really a theme to the park. It's just like fun with movies is kind of the theme. So going off of that, one of the rides I really don't like at Hollywood Studios currently is Star Tours. And I hit on this in our last podcast, but it just doesn't make any sense to me that there's another Star Wars ride right next to Galaxy's Edge that's like separated by the Muppets Land. It's so weird. So what I would do is we get rid of Star Tours, and potentially, if you wanted to expand this idea, you would get rid of the Indiana Jones stunt show, and in its place, put a Black Panther land. Now, hear me out. So, Black Panther is the most successful, like standalone Marvel movie. It made so much money, and obviously, Marvel's going to keep going for a long time. So you have that relevance. But in the Star Tours building, I think Black Panther would be a perfect fit to replace it, because you have the Wakanda technology. Black Panther and Shuri are super cool. You could definitely have some kind of story where they're going on some kind of mission with this super high tech like transportation, and you could have that as the simulator, and you could even turn it into its own mini land. You could have a meet and greet with Black Panther, or maybe some of the other Avengers show up. You could even lean into the Wakanda side and do sort of like a, I guess, like a lesser extent to what Pandora and Galaxy's Edge are. But eventually, yeah, like a restaurant, something like that. And then for the stunt show, you could always turn that into something as well, because it's kind of adjacent to Star Tours, right? So, but what is your Hollywood studio?
I like that one a lot. That's cool. I never thought about that. My Hollywood Studios one is one, it's not as drastic, and it's a ride that I like, and I want the same track, just retheme the whole attraction. And that's taking Rock and Roller Coaster and turning it into a Big Hero 6 ride. But we need to use projection mapping, or kind of like the Mickey Minnie's Runaway Railway, where it's like a lot of projections, but done in a way that it looks like you're really there. To where you launch off and like Baymax is flying with you or something over San Francisco, so they could on the floor do like the Peter Pan's flight trick, you know, where it's like a building that's this big, but it looks like you're a million feet high, and then just project like Baymax flying around. And I think it'd be cool. The launch, leave it, because it's cool and it fits, and it can just be like, hey, we're testing out, you know, those kids are testing out a new thing, and Baymax is coming along, and I think it could be really cool. Especially with like how colorful and bright that movie is, and like futuristic looking, they could do a lot of cool things with like lighting and projections and stuff like that. And you could even change that whole little area, because it's like rock and roll themed, but I mean it's just a big guitar out front, and just like change it to look like a lab. And then those little stands there, you know, you can change to look all futuristic and stuff. So I think it'd be a really easy switch over. And it's not like that area. It's kind of like in the back by itself. So I don't think it would really like ruin the theme of Sunset Boulevard, which is really just the walk up to Tower of Terror anyways.
That's true.
So, yeah.
That's a really good one. So it's interesting because Aerosmith's contract is up kind of soon, right?
I think so.
So they're gonna have to do something with it eventually, but that would be a really good idea. And you could even, like that whole rock and roll section, you just turn it into like some kind of set from the movie. I think that'd be super cool. But okay. So those are the things that we would change. What would be like if you had like one thing in either of the four parks to where you can add something. What would be like your dream attraction to bring to the parks?
Western River Expedition. That's what they should do instead of the Splash Mountain. Just give me that. I'll let them tear down Splash Mountain if they give us that.
That would be awesome.
That's what I want. What about you?
I think mine would be also at Magic Kingdom, but I would love a volcano roller coaster at like in Adventureland, like the treehouse. Yeah, nobody goes on that, right? You could make. I think they were talking about doing this at one point where you made like a little path that goes back, like behind Adventureland, and you could even do like kind of a small mini land where it's like Polynesian themed. You could have a volcano roller coaster, maybe do like a Moana attraction there. So yeah, I think that would be really cool. Those are our ideas, and we're not going to sit here and pretend like we're can possibly come up with stuff that's better than what Imagineering can come up with, but it's always fun to be creative and to speculate and to dream. So, guys, thanks for watching. Let us know below if you have any changes that you would like to make to the park or any dream attractions that you'd love to bring to Walt Disney World. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you next time.